Avionics costs, are they going up? Are they going down? We're going to find out.
In the hangar. Hello and welcome to Air Venture at the Flying Eyes booth. I'm Christy Wong.
And I'm Dan, and this is In the Hangar. We're excited to have you. We're going to be talking about avionics, but before we do that, I want to tell you about Flying Eyes. You use our discount code at flyingeyesoptics.com, taking off, all caps, one word, for 10% off. Who else, Christy?
And Clemens Insurance. We'd like to thank Jerry for saving you money on your insurance.
He has saved me a lot of money, like 4 figures on my insurance policy.
Jerry's
ClemensInsurance.net. Okay, we have with us from all the way from Aspen. We
I've
have
been told.
John. You're the CEO, president. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks. It's a pleasure. Always a pleasure to be here.
So you've been with Aspen a long time. Can you tell me about how Aspen started?
Yeah. So Aspen was started by a couple of engineers out of Eclipse Aviation out of Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Not Aspen.
Nowhere near
Not Aspen. Not Aspen. It's
Right.
always, this always comes up. In Albuquerque, in the Sandia Mountains at the top, there's a beautiful grove of aspens that sit up at the top. And every year it's a beautiful show for everybody, and that's where we got our name from.
Okay, that's
the
fair.
aspen comes from the beautiful aspens in the Sandia Mountains outside Albuquerque.
My wife's favorite tree is the aspen.
Yeah. So Aspen started, as I said, a couple engineers out of Eclipse, general aviation pilots, avionics guys, and during that time in 2005, 6, 7 time frame, most every general aviation cockpit had just steam gauge, basically.
Right.
And there was felt that there was a need to bring glass cockpits into the general aviation community because nobody had ever done it. So these guys came up with an idea to do that, and they came out with a single display. At the same time, they were trying to get some funding from private equity venture capital to take the company public, or take the company to the next level. And these guys got a hold of a couple pilots out of the Bay Area and out of Utah, and they invested a bunch of money to do it, and they revamped it into what you see today as the EFD 1000, which is a combined ADI and HSI.
Which the EFD 1000 is what is in my 210 Lola.
Right, exactly. How do you know it was Lola? That's nice. I like that.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to name my airplane one day.
Yeah.
So that came out in 2007. They went out and started to hire somebody. And I'm working corporate my whole life, Honeywell and other places, and a bunch of recruiters came after me and said, you really got to do this job, you got to do this job. And I said no 5 or 6 times because what do I know about startups, right? I'm a corporate guy, right? So, but they eventually convinced me, and one of the ways they convinced me is that I could fly, which is something I always wanted to do in my life, and so I was able to get my pilot's license.
Nice.
That's an incentive.
That had a big deal. Honestly, I remember telling my wife I'm going to take this job because I can fly, and she looked at me like, what? So at that time, we invested money and we started to do the EFD 1000 primary flight display. Certified in 2008, came out, great response. And also my competitors responded because then they saw the market for that. We set the price point at an affordable level, which brought everybody's prices down. And we like to take credit for bringing affordable glass cockpits into. And now you look around, there's a lot of companies,
everywhere.
A lot of choices, right? And that's actually by design. I mean, we wanted to bring safety, functionality into the market space. It was more than just money. It really was.
Well, and at that time, correct me if I'm wrong, what you were doing was creating a glass solution that would fit inside the spot for the steam gauges. You didn't have to redesign your panel and spend all that kind of money. And is that kind of what you were
and that
doing?
actually is a kind of a key point because there were 2 things at that time. People were hesitant to put a glass cockpit in. Plus, many of the aircraft you're going into have values, $60,000 to $150,000, and the cost of putting something in, if it's 40 grand, you're not going to do it, right? You're not going to put 40 grand into a $100,000 airplane for avionics.
Right.
So what we did, and much of the cost of avionics is in the installation, because you got to take the panel off, and if you have to redo a panel, cost is high. So we made it such that it fit into the 6-pack holes, and we came up with an installation that we patented. And allows you to clip it in and clip it out.
See, that's the problem I'm having with the Warrior right now. You and I have talked about this.
Yeah.
I want to do an upgrade. I still have the 6-pack vacuum system, and affordability, that's a big one. But B, I don't want to have to redo my entire panel just to fit a couple of those in there. And we know that there are some competitors that kind of have that plug and play. But my God, it's expensive.
It can be, and we think that our particular installation makes it affordable as, by any metric, a percentage of the value of your aircraft, the cash you got to put out. We have a model that allows you to upgrade to either add more displays or functionality, so as your flying progresses with glass panels, because to be honest with you, people get glass panels coming from a 6-pack, they're a little bit hesitant, right? I mean, that's a lot of information.
Very.
They get carried away. They don't want to pay for things they don't use, right? So, you know, your prices go up and you get all this stuff and you use a third of it. We designed it such that we give you the basics, and then as you decide or mature as a pilot or go to IFR and you want more capabilities like a map or like ADS-B in on your displays or synthetic vision, that you can add those things without having to redo your cockpit.
Let's talk cost, if you wouldn't mind,
Not at all.
because these are things, as an airplane owner, you're speaking to me. I want to know what it would cost if I were to put one of your devices in my airplane.
So there's two levels of costs. There's your cost of your equipment, and then there's your installation costs. Your installation costs are going to vary based on your aircraft, you know, what's behind there. Like, for example, if an old airplane's done work behind the panel and you got a spaghetti mess of wires, that's going to cost you more because you can't put it back together with a spaghetti. But if you got a basic 6-pack and you haven't had anything torn up behind it or anything like that, you're going to have minimal installation costs. I can't quote that because we don't do installations.
That's fair.
And each deal, to be fair, you should shop it around to your dealers. I mean, we have 600 dealers worldwide, and nowadays people take their airplanes to different places to have it. And the competition is good. Again, competition drives price down.
Right.
But the actual equipment, depending on where you want to go with an E5, which is our kind of our entry-level type ADI and HSI, that'll run you around $49.95. Okay?
So $5,000.
About $5,000.
Okay.
And you know, we have a lot of specials going on right now, so you can, this time of year, Oshkosh, talk to my sales guys. You never know what you're going to do for you.
Right. Okay.
But and then if you wanted to go to the Pro Max, which is more functional, it allows you to install synthetic vision. It allows you to install angle of attack, which I want to talk about later, because if you're the type of airplane, I want to talk about angle of attack.
Okay.
But that will run you about $7,500.
Okay.
Oh,
So
that's
Single
not much
display.
more.
those are not super scary prices.
No, they aren't. And then if you want to add a second tube to provide multifunctional display capabilities, that's another $6,000. And then you can actually add a third
now
display.
it's scary.
Well, that's exactly why it's so important. So, for
Yeah.
example, a guy that's got a Bonanza,
Okay.
who's got a value of his airplane's $250,000, it makes sense a bit
Okay.
to go ahead and do that. But a guy that's got a 172, probably not going to do that. He's going to put in a PFD and use his iPad.
Okay.
Right.
His or her iPad. That's what they're going to do, right? And
Right.
that makes sense in today's world.
But the Wong Warrior is invaluable.
It
I
is.
just want to throw that out there.
I
So-
didn't mean
can't
to-
put
I
a
didn't mean
number
to
on the
imply
Wong
otherwise.
Warrior.
Yeah, you can't put a number on the Warrior.
I'm sorry, I
so-
didn't mean to imply otherwise.
Okay, so that's kind of the price points. What separates Aspen from like the other avionics out there?
So we follow a very different model than my competitors. My competitors, I like to call it the bright, shiny object approach.
Okay.
They like to put stuff in your airplane and come out with a bright, new, shiny object to convince you to rip the old stuff out and put new stuff in. We take a whole different approach. So our hardware infrastructure of the PFD has not changed since 2007. So the actual PFD is physically, outwardly looking exactly the same. But we've gone through multiple upgrades of the hardware and software that allows you to update the software and even update your hardware without having to rip things out of your airplane. So for example, the people that bought our PFD in 2008, they've had it in there for 12 years, right? And they're looking at all these new displays with the bright, displays.
I'm one of those guys.
Right, exactly, right? And then we provided what we call a max upgrade. For about $3,000, they get a new display with the latest technology and the brightness. They get a faster processor. They get a bunch more functionality, and they get the ability to upgrade it for less than half price of what they paid for it.
So that was my next question: was what happens in 5 or 10 years from now when that technology is
yeah,
obsolete?
so Lola has the original one that's
Yep.
been in there for probably 15 years.
Yeah, it is.
So so if I did that upgrade, is it as simple as just disconnecting the wires on the old one and putting them in the exact same spot?
Exactly.
So really, my install price is going to be incredibly minimum.
Exactly. So to go from
That's crazy.
to go from a Pro to a Pro Max, literally, you take a screwdriver and you pop the top button, you pull it out. The guy gives another one and slams it in. Now, if you, for example, if you want audio, yes, you could put one wire between there and the audio panel, and now you'll have audio altitude alerts.
Ooh.
You can have that if you want. Don't have to have it.
Right.
But literally, that's all it takes to get to the Pro Max.
What about other things? So, like, I'm thinking about Lola. One of the biggest upgrades I need right now is an autopilot.
Yeah.
What about navigation? What, you know, do you guys offer anything, or do you play nice with the others? Where are we at on that?
Which is the second differentiator.
Okay.
We play with everybody. There's one exception to that, but we play with everybody, and we work with everybody to ensure that when new interfaces come out, like the big deal right now is the new navigators, right? Garmin and Avidyne have come up with beautiful navigators, a little different approach to each one, but you can pull out your 530 or your 430 and pop in an Avidyne 440 or 550 or a Garmin 650, 750, and it will play as you did before with the added functionality of display you get from it, okay? Autopilots are a little bit of a different animal, but we interface with all the autopilots except one. And that's because Garmin won't give us the interface for the G500. And that's unfortunate for the industry, but it is a reality. They have a design that doesn't allow, that requires their displays and a certain display with the G500 autopilot. By the way, it's a great autopilot, don't get me wrong.
But the 600 would work,
The
right?
600 doesn't.
Okay.
The 600 is a more pricey autopilot for bigger aircraft. So if you're in the Bonanza Baron range, the 600 looks good. We have a Bonanza out at our North 40 tent with the G600 and the display.
Oh, wow.
It's
Okay.
it's a very cool airplane, by the way.
But whether it's a S-Tech or it's a whatever.
S-Tech, Sentry, Bendix King autopilots, they all work because they have open interfaces and we're able to do it. So.
Okay, well that answers, because on Lola, I've got that old, or I shouldn't say old, that legacy Aspen.
You can say it's old because it is old. It's 15 years old. It's okay.
And I've got a 430 WAS. So, you know, that's one of the things, you know, I need upgrade in this.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, I mean, there's a lot of options. I mean, it depends as a pilot what you like. If you want to get the navigators, do that first. You know, or we'd love you to do it all at once, by the way.
Right.
But it's driven a lot by budget, right?
Right.
And each pilot has a different preference, and we try to tailor our system so that you as pilots can have a choice on what you want to do and how you want to do it. That is a major differentiator for us and creates a really strong, loyal following of Aspen customers.
Okay, I'm on board.
I know with navigation you have to do your, you know, monthly database charges and you have that kind of money. Is there any kind of ongoing subscription required for the Aspen PFDs?
So no, not for the PFDs. So the PFD MFD does not require any kind of.
So if you come up with a software upgrade, do we get that?
Yes. So for everything outside of synthetic vision, angle of attack, which are value add type things and create you a new level of flying experience, we provide the software updates free of charge. And what that means is you literally go to a dealer, he takes a little SD card, pops it in there, load your software, and you're ready to go.
You wanted to talk about angle of attack.
Okay, so let's talk about angle of attack. At some point a little while ago, angle of attack was all the rage, right?
Right.
I was a skeptic, honestly. I'd never flown angle attack, but many of the guys in the military, especially my flight test engineer or my flight test pilot, told me about angle attack. So we developed a computed angle of attack with one of our owners, and one of our partners is a company called Cira, which is basically the NASA of Italy.
Oh, okay.
So we developed this angle of attack that allowed you to have angle attack without installing an external sensor.
Oh,
Which
wow.
is, by the way, cost and reliability, and you always got to tweak it all the time.
Okay.
And so you take it up in the air and you calibrate this thing, and you now have angle attack. But more importantly, our angle of attack gives you angle of attack with your flaps up and your flaps down, so that you know when you make a flap change, what that might do to your angle of attack. Perfect example, DA40. The stall for a DA40 with its flaps down versus flaps up is quite wide.
Okay.
So I take off in a DA40 and I pull my nose up and I'm going for VX or VY, and I start bleeding off speed and I pull my flaps up and my stall horn goes off immediately. I can see it on the angle of attack that that's going to happen, so I know I can nose over, bring the flaps up, down into the green area, and boom, my flaps up.
Okay.
These are the kind of things that provide you a lot of visibility. The other cool thing we do with angle attack, we put it near your speed tape. So you're looking at your PFD and you got it right there. So I now fly angle attack. I peg that thing right on the yellow green
So you're no
line.
longer a skeptic.
Right, and I use speed just to make sure, right? I glance at the speed about every fourth time around the scan.
Gotcha. So you're not a
Just to make
skeptic,
sure.
you're trust but verify.
I am now one person that loves angle of attack. And I
Okay.
think, and when you're descending, you put it on the yellow green line and you're flying 1.3 VSO.
So with the glass avionics that we have today, in your opinion, what is maybe one of the best unknown, little used feature of glass panels?
Okay, so that's a good question. I actually have an answer. So a lot of people that go from the steam gauges to the glass panel don't understand that we can calculate your crab angle. So there's a little blue diamond on that HSI, and and as you're crabbing or as you're flying, if you're flying a heading and you're starting to float off to the side, that little blue diamond's off center. And all you have to really do is, it's really simple. You just pull the blue diamond to the top. So if it's on the right, you flip it to the left, you bring that blue diamond up, and now you are flying that heading, you're not drifting. Your airplane's like this, but you're flying like that. And that people don't realize, you tell them that and they say, oh, big deal, until they use it and they realize that now they can fly precisely by hand and not have to continually correct for crab.
All right, I'm glad you said that because, and what is that called? It's got a name and I forget.
I call it the blue diamond.
All right, so I recently went and got my double I.
Okay.
I've been flying Lola for 5 years and never realized that's what that blue diamond was.
That's right.
So I never used it, and so then my CFII that was instructing me to get ready for my check ride was like, why aren't you using this? And he demonstrated it as like, oh my gosh. It changed everything.
Thing.
And now as a CFII and I'm teaching people in Lola, I'm able to teach them about that. And one of my recent students made a comment because I was having trouble remembering, do I go left to pull the dot or do I go right? And he said, oh, it's like a marble. You just got to roll it into the arrow.
Good call.
And so now that's how I teach it. You roll the marble into the arrow cup.
It is a great help when you're flying by hand on a procedure.
See, I want to be
one
on
less
the
thing to
end.
think about.
You want to be on the what?
I want to be on the inside. I want to know now. I've never experienced this blue diamond.
I got to tell you, when you're flying and you're doing your currency and you got an instructor next to you and he's having you fly by hand, it's one huge thing not to worry about. You're not constantly correcting for wind.
Okay.
I'll show you.
That's
the
fair.
other thing is flight path marker. I don't have one that I can easily get to in the Aspen, in the old one.
Yeah.
Do you have a good flight path marker
We
now?
We do. A good flight path marker is in the eye of the beholder.
Okay.
So we have a flight path marker that allows you to peg it on the horizon and you fly into the flight path marker. I will say that it's not the most popular thing unless you got a sophisticated pilot that thinks about those kinds of things.
Right. Well, see, I was flying with Joe Casey, and he told me about that.
He's pretty sophisticated.
Yeah, sophisticated flyers will say, how can you fly without a flight path marker?
Right.
It really is. And it is really a matter of preference for whether you do. Personally, I don't use it as much as I probably should.
Right.
Because it makes me think too much.
Right.
But it is a good thing, and it's a good option for people to use that really find that useful. And it is useful when you're in the clouds and you're being bounced around a lot and things bouncing around all over the place. It's a good thing to have.
All right. Last question. Will we ever see Aspen expand out beyond the two-hole, vertical screens? Will you ever have a big 5x7 or something like
So-
10 by 10 inch or whatever.
So there's a little backstory to that, okay? If you can bear with me. So Aspen is merged with 5 other companies.
Oh,
and
okay.
created a thing called the Aero Group,
Oh.
AIRO. And within that, there are 4 divisions. There's the avionics division. There's a drones division. We have drones flying in Ukraine, for example.
Oh, wow.
There is a training division. We fly adversary air, close air support training for the military.
Wow.
And then there is an eVTOL, the Jaunt Journey. We will be providing the avionics. I'll just say we're providing the avionics for that. And when that comes out, it'll become very clear what we're doing next.
Okay.
How about that?
Okay, a little teaser. I like
A
it.
little teaser. All right. Well, John, thanks so much for coming on and explaining a lot of stuff about the avionics to us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to be
Sounds
with
like-
you guys, and everybody just have a great show.
We've got some stuff to talk about off screen about the Warrior. So
Okay, and you guys have stuff to talk about. If you want to leave a comment in the comments, you know, maybe we can get John or somebody to answer your questions about it. So also don't forget our sponsors. By supporting them, you support us. Sponsors like 67 Designs. They make incredible camera, phones, and tablet mounts for the cockpit. Also, Marshall Protective Services, MPSProtects.com, Colton Mortgage, residential mortgages, ColtonTakingOff.com, and Z-Vision, the brightest landing and taxi lights out there
all right, well, you guys know what to do. Like, subscribe, share. We'll see you next time.
in the hangar.